Hello everyone. So we will continue our discussion on Metasploit framework. And so we have seen the basics of how to use MSF console, the CLI version of Metasploit, which is free to use. And we know by now that we can use help command to see the help. Again, I am using the latest version, which is MSF6 as of today. But if you are using an older version, some of the output that you are seeing here would be very different from what you are seeing here. Especially the MSF5 and MSF4 will have a very different version here. Now, as you can see, the help command shows the basic help, the basic commands that are available with Metasploit. And now, today we are going to talk about the payload. So, payload is what gets executed once your exploit gets completed. And uh, there are a lot of payloads on Metasploit. And once you have selected the module that you want to use, for example, we are using exploit Windows SMB MS08067 Net API, which works best on Windows XP. There are other targets that you can select for this, but we are using Windows XP SP3. Now, when you do a set payload and give a tab, you can see that there are 171 possibilities, but these are not all the payloads that exist in Metasploit. These are just the payloads which would work with the current module that you are using. Okay. Now, if I say yes for this, then you can see all the payloads that I can execute with this specific exploit. Now, as you can see, there are very different kind of payloads that you can execute. You can have a bind shell, you can have a reverse shell, and so on and so forth. You can use HTTP for it, you can use IPv6 for it, you can use HTTPS for creating a shell, and again, each of these generally have a bind as well as reverse. Again, uh, when we talk about payload, the biggest problem with payloads, as you might have seen by now, is that they can only do one thing at a time, right? So if I, for example, select this Windows Add User, and if I go to Options, you would see that the payload options would change because my payload has changed. And the options now I am getting is what is the user that I want to create, what is the password that I want to create, and is there a custom group to which I want to add this user to. Now, since we have seen this net API exploit in our last video also, and we have seen that we got an administrator user when we executed this. So I can add administrators as my custom group, and then the user will be added in the local administrators group for when this user is created. But what is interesting with Metasploit is you can also set the payload to Meterpreter. Okay, Meterpreter is a special type of a shell which specifically works with MSF console only, and it gives you much more flexibility in terms of what you can do. When you get into a Meterpreter cell, you can basically run a lot of Linux commands that are known to you. For example, you can use cd, ls, and so on and so forth. You can also spawn a cell from a Meterpreter. You can also create various channels, which means that you can have multiple channels on the in the same exploit, which are connecting to multiple cells, and each of the channels could be in the background or in the foreground. So there's a lot of flexibility that Meterpreter gives. Again, Meterpreter has two flavors. One is stageless and one is stage payload. In stageless, the complete payload is sent in a single go, and it will establish a reversal in a single go, which is good when you have a lot of space to put the shellcode in your uh, exploit. This is specifically the case when you are exploiting a buffer overflow and trying to do a RC. So if you have like thousands of bytes which you can use, then of course you can send the whole shell code in a single go. However, if you have just a few hundred bytes, maybe 100 bytes, 200 bytes, then you may not be able to send the whole shell code in a single go. In that case, you can use a staged payload. And in a staged payload, Meterpreter will basically send a very small payload in the original exploit. The first stage will just try to get the second stage by connecting back to your Kali machine, and once it gets the second stage, it will execute the second stage to give you a full shell. The way you can distinguish them is if you see a slash between Meterpreter and the type, then it is a staged payload, and if it is Meterpreter underscore and then it continues, then it's a stageless payload, right? Now, let's again look at the payloads. Uh, let's say Windows Meterpreter, and we want to look at all the Meterpreter loads. So as you can see here, we can only use staged payload here. Stageless payloads are not listed here because it is not probably compatible with this, right? Now we will look at do a little bit about why we would want to use Meterpreter and what it basically means, right? Meterpreter basically stands for Meterpreter. It has a lot of functionality which helps you in your post-exploitation. So let's say I want to use Meterpreter reverse TCP, or we can actually do HTTPS is not there. Yeah, let's do reverse TCP. That's okay. So we can see in options we have everything set, and now we can just say exploit. Okay. Now we have got a Meterpreter set, and as I showed you last time, this is a shell which is on my remote host, which is a Windows box, right? So I can say ipconfig command, and I don't really need to get into a shell to run a ipconfig command, right? From the Meterpreter prompt itself, I can run a ipconfig command, which is nothing but a Windows command, but I can still run it from here. Now, ls is a Linux command, but as you can see, if I do a cd// and do a ls, I can execute ls also. Okay. So there are some Windows commands or some Linux commands also that you can do, and again you can just type help to see what are the commands that you can run. We will get into some of these commands at a later stage, but for now I wanted to show you that this is something that you can do. Now, first thing that you can always do is sysinfo. This is a very useful command. Once you get into the system, you can always do a sysinfo command, which will show you the name of the computer, the OS that we are into, the architecture, the Meterpreter. Always note the Meterpreter and the architecture, right? So the architecture you can see here is x86, and in Meterpreter you can see that we have x86 Windows, which basically means that we are running a 32-bit Windows and we have a 32-bit Meterpreter. Now, if you had a 64-bit Windows and you are running 32-bit Meterpreter, then there are few things that you would not be able to do because of the difference in architecture between your Meterpreter and the architecture of the OS. Then you would like to first upgrade to a 64-bit Meterpreter, and then you would be able to do multiple other things. Now, we can see the tasks running on Windows by just doing a PS or task list. Both of this should work. I think we will have to go to shell for that, but I'll show you how to go into shell. Uh, Now, one of the things that you can do with Meterpreter, first and most important thing is that you can migrate your process to other processes. For example, there are a couple of other processes running here, uh, but just to show you what we can do, I will actually go to my Windows machine here and I will start a notepad. Accessories, notepad. Okay, now we will also start the task manager, and these are the processes that we can see here, right? Uh, okay, now we will go back to our Kali and we will say PS again to see the processes that are running, and we should see the notepad process here somewhere. Here it is. This is my notepad.exe running as Amit Agarwal. Uh, that is my username. This is my process name. This is the parent PID and this is the PID of my notepad.exe 184, right? So there is a command called as migrate, and we can again check the help for this. Help migrate. Okay. So if we check the help for this, we can either give the PID directly or minus P PID or minus capital N name and then the timeout. We will just try migrate and 182. Uh, did we give 184, not 182? So this is our notepad.exe process, and we are migrating from 956 to 184. Now the migration is successful, and if we go back to our Windows, you can see that my notepad is running as it was. My notepad is running as it was, and there is no changes. I can still use notepad. Okay, and the Meterpreter process is now running inside this process as a different thread, which basically means that if someone is looking at Task Manager also, they will not be able to find the process for the Meterpreter. Now earlier it was 926, no 956, right? Yeah, 956. It was migrating from 956. So earlier it was showing up as svc host.exe. Again, I can go back to 956 and I can just say migrate 956 and it will migrate it back to svc host process. Okay. This is one of the useful commands that you may want to use. The other useful command that you may want to use is get system. Currently, we already have a Meterpreter as the system user, and hence we are able to go into any of the processes. But just in case you land up as a low privileged user, then get system might help you to get the highest privileges on the system. If we run get system right now, we are already running a system, so it will not do anything. But if it was not running as a system user, then it would have tried multiple techniques to provide you with the system privileges. Along with all this, you also get the benefit of uh, using upload and download command. So if you want to upload a file to the remote system or you want to download a file from the remote system, you can use the upload and download command. Upload minus minus help upload, and you can see that I can just say upload whichever sources I want to upload and the final destination. Similarly, I can download a file from the remote side. You can see that I can just say download which are the files I want to download, and these are on the remote system, remember it. And this destination is on my local system. Since this is a download command, then again there are few other options that you might want to use, for example, recursively or timestamp downloaded files and so on and so forth. These could be quite useful. Again, if you just run help command, you will see that there are few other commands which could be very helpful. Some of these we will see later as well, but I just wanted to show you that there are a lot of commands that Meterpreter gives you out of the box that you don't have to remember. For example, you can run get privs and it will show you all the privileges that you have currently, right? You can enable firewall rules, you can enable RDP, uh, you can do pivoting through Meterpreter and so on and so forth. There are a lot of features that Meterpreter gives, and uh, there are a lot of modules that you can use with Meterpreter. And currently, we are only looking at the core commands and STD API module, right? So when you are seeing the command, it will show you the module, the plugin from where it is getting that command. So STD API has networking commands, system commands, and so on and so forth. STD API is a plugin for Meterpreter which is loaded automatically. First thing Meterpreter starts, and there are a few other plugins that you can use. Priv plugin is also loaded, as you can see, and from Priv you get commands for Elevate command. So the get system command that we were just now talking about is coming from the plugin called as Priv. There are few other plugins. We will talk about plugins also a little bit later, but I wanted to quickly show you about what is Meterpreter and what it can do. Also, note that if you have an older system, then the Windows Defender can be bypassed by using Meterpreter because it doesn't write any file into the disk, and it's a in-memory process, right? And you can hence also do a in-memory process migration. You can read and write to registry, you can access file system, uh, and so on and so forth. There are a couple of other things that you can do. Uh, so that would be all for this video. Thank you.